It is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you're tuned in to Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. But this is Chip Chat. Welcome to Chip Chat, everybody. I'm Chip. Now, normally this is where I'd say, who are you, Tez? But Tez is not here. Fortunately, he's also not a senator from California. So he's fine. He's just not feeling well, which is okay. We sent him on an assignment, and we'll find out what he comes back.
Wait, he's not feeling well, so you sent him on an assignment?
Yeah, that's punishment. So that's what you get for calling in sick around here. That voice, of course, is our current favorite producer, Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hello.
Current favorite producer. Well, you could be worse.
I could be.
Yeah. So we have look, this show is like a lot of things, but we are, I think it's safe to say, like, officially the Resistance now. And
that was just old.
Yeah, all the things that I've been saying for months now are happening. And all of the people, specifically Tez, who told me that I was being an alarmist or I should not say those things and that the American people are better than that, he's wrong. And yeah, so this is one of the few times I don't want to be right, but I am, as usual. So anyway, with that all out of the way, we have special guests tonight. Yes. Nikki and Miko from Boots to Heels podcast are going to be joining us for a little bit. Their show's about transitioning from military life to civilian life, or in this case, civilian government to military dictatorship. And yeah, so we're going to find out from them what we should do. Yeah. We'll have the latest from LA. Yeah, we'll have headlines. The MAGA folks are out here injecting bleach again, which is great. Yeah, it's going to be wild. There's even stuff in here I don't even know about. So,
and we may have a breaking news story.
Oh, and breaking news. Well, there could always be breaking news. You never know.
Yeah.
Around here. So, Brian, do you have a word?
Yes.
Okay. Let me think if I have a word. Yes. Okay. So sit back, grab some
cliffhanger.
It's press conference time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and Beyond.
Spaceballs.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me, filling in for Tez, is Brian. And we have special guests who are going to help us with some headlines. Let's see if we can make that work. I'm not the technical genius around here. Nikki and Miko, are you there?
We are here.
Yes.
Hooray!
Hi.
Hey guys. Hey Chip.
Hello, Chip. Thank you for inviting us.
We are very excited to have you. Now, we're going to get to the bit where we interview you and ask you all the stuff about your show. But first, we need you to help us out a little bit with our show, which is you're going to help us with the headlines.
Okay.
So the way this works is we'll each take turns reading a headline, and you have the honor of going first if you'd like.
Okay, yeah. So it's headlines. This week, Trump federalized the California National Guard and called them out to LA to protect the valuable national interest against graffiti.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes. Based on his success in taking control of the California Guard, Trump ordered federal control of the Kentucky Guard, only to find out that's not who makes the chicken.
Okay. Trump's move to take control of events in California was swiftly challenged in court. Writing for the state, Governor Gavin Newsom reminded the Trump regime that California knows how to party.
There you go. JD Vance got in on the action, sending a unit of guard troops to IKEA and declaring himself the Sofa King.
I'm done. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott rolled out the National Guard to ramp up the pressure on protesters who had taken steps to embarrass him. Governor Abbott said he has no intention of walking back his response, adding that his wheels are always turning as he thinks of new ways to disable immigrants' rights groups.
That's right. Now, just to be very clear why that's funny, if you don't know, it's because Greg Abbott is in a wheelchair. And it's because Greg Abbott is a reprehensible shitbag that it's okay to make fun of him for being in a wheelchair.
We love it. Okay.
Just to be careful about that. Back in California, Senator Alex Padilla tried to ask Secretary of DHS Kristi Noem a question at a press conference and was instead detained by her goons. But while that's pretty bad, at least he wasn't a puppy.
Also this week, Trump fell up the stairs on his way to board Air Force One. I saw that.
I didn't.
Speaking to reporters, later he claimed that Obama's tank
Tan suit. That's a typo.
Tan suit caused him to lose focus, but that he will be sending the National Guard to Nordstrom to make sure nobody else buys a tan suit.
Remember when they thought that Obama wearing a tan suit was going to unmake the country?
Yeah, it was so un-American. Oh my God.
Yeah, how dare he?
Yeah.
Mikey Sherrill won the Democratic primary for New Jersey governor. If she wins the main event, she will have the second largest set of boobs in New Jersey governor history, coming a few cup sizes short of Chris Christie.
I'm done. Chris Christie got some big ones. Elon Musk has left his job at Doge and has been heavily investing in personal care products. As for a quote as to where he was investing, Musk said, "Depends." It depends.
A person climbed up the broadcast tower of the local DC NPR station. Police responded with tote bag launchers to knock him back to the ground.
The tower climber was welcomed as a hero when it was revealed he was on his way to disable pledge drive.
That's right.
Yep.
Trade representatives from the U.S. and China met in London to hammer out what they are calling a framework. No word on what's in the deal, but the lucky numbers in the fortune cookies were 8647.
I'm going to play that tonight at lottery.
She is. 3 Florida men assaulted several Canadians on a visit to Sunrise this week. All 3 were thrown in the box, and the Panthers won 6-1.
Yep. They're up 3-0, I think, the last I looked. Right now. All right, the BET Awards were held and included some political theatrics from some of the winners. Also honored at the event was Mariah Carey. Well, half of her anyway.
Notably absent from the BET honors was the diddler Diddy, but the baby oil residue was still deemed a slipping hazard.
That's right. And finally, despite being fiercely neutral in all facets of life, the Swiss beat the snot out of the U.S. men's national team, prompting the last 4 supporters of the team to apply for asylum in Mexico. We're bad. I don't understand how a country of 350 million can't find 11 dudes that can play soccer.
Yeah, we suck.
Well, I love the head aching headlines. Like, I absolutely
Thank you for helping. Okay, so this is where we're going to take a break. Now, in the last few weeks, Brian has been using this opportunity to throw something completely inappropriate at us in the break, which
Yes.
I'm guessing he's going to do that again. So just heads up.
Okay.
I love inappropriate.
Yes, Brian, are you ready
Then
to
you'll
go to a
definitely
break?
love this one.
You'll love this one.
Oh, Lord. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond. Street.
At the border, he puffed his chest. I'll build that wall 10 feet, no less. But when the cost came knocking loud, he ducked and blamed the press. He said, I never back down. No one tells me what to do. But throw him in a real debate and he's crying fake news. Taco Trump is a taco Trump, always chickens out, runs faster than a shadow. He talks tough, then retreats like a taco made of fluff. No beans, no meat, just bluff. Said he'd crush the Chinese trade. Tariffs will make us rich today. But when markets dropped a single point, he panicked and backed away. NAFTA's dead, he claimed with pride. America first, we won't bend. Then signed a deal that looked the same and called himself a genius again. Taco Trump is a taco Trump, always chickens out. He's all bark and bravado, starts a war, then calls it off like a taco made of mist. You bite down, nothing's missed. He folds like laundry. He threatened Europe with new steel tax. Pay up or face the pain. But once the lobbyists came to lunch, he dropped it. It's not the same. He talks like he's a cowboy with a hat that's 10 feet wide. But the moment pressure hits him, he's already slipped outside. Taco Trump is a taco Trump, always chickens out, throws tantrums then goes big sombrero, empty plate, no heat in that fajita shout. Senoras, he just chickened out. Me taco, Trump always chickens out. And that's no queso, amigos.
That's no queso, amigos.
I'm wondering, is there any dance classes for those dances that he's giving out?
Yeah, I want to know how to do that. Flip your shoulder
Yeah, right.
side of your body
I
move.
want to do that.
Oh God! So this is where Tez would say AI and Brian must be stopped. I agree. AI and Brian must be stopped. But that
I
was
think
hilarious.
AI are becoming best friends here. It's like I said.
Yeah.
I've been joining the dark side for a very long time. So this we're a good match.
I
Gave
love
him
it.
some good dance moves. So.
Yeah. I'm still trying to wonder how he did that owl body move. I'm just
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the video is how he like flips his whole body all the way around, and then he does, and also like why his arms and legs are disproportionate from each other.
Yeah.
Way to go, AI.
Yes, AI, great job.
So close.
Great job.
You're so close. All right, so yeah, that was fantastic. Okay, now let's do the real interview part of the show. So, Army vets and BFFs, Nikki and Miko bring all of us funny and inspiring conversations about pre- and post-military life on their show. They cover all kinds of topics, and especially the transition to civilian life. Can't say transition too loud anymore. And we have them here to talk about their show, but also to ask them some of the important questions about the military, because that's really important right now. So Nikki and Miko, officially welcome to Chip Chat.
Thank
you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we get into asking all of these questions, we do need to get out of the way the conflict of interest aspect of this. Miko is here. You have a connection to this show already. So if you would like to explain why you think you're a better host than Patrick, now's your time.
Oh, well, I think that if I was running for a co-host, I think that people would enjoy my smile more than they enjoy Patrick's. Although I do enjoy his smile. I'm just simply saying. Also,
He does smile a lot.
He does. He has a great hearty laugh. But also, he doesn't have this hair to do this to when we're thinking conversation. Yep. Give me one.
He doesn't have Nikki with him
Oh,
as the second part.
Yes.
As a best friend.
3-0, babe. Sorry.
And most importantly, he doesn't have Moet.
Oh, right. He probably has gin and
tonic, yeah.
Tonic, yeah.
Standard Patrick kit is gin and tonic with limes.
Yep. You know, I know.
All right. Well, very convincing campaign speech there. I think we'll have to stage a debate maybe at some point to see.
I like debates.
This will be very funny. This is what Tez calls us DJing to ourselves. This is funny to us and probably all 6 of our listeners, but that's
right.
Okay. So tell us about your show and how you decided to start doing a show.
Nikki,
I'm the oldest, so I will start it.
She is.
Well, we met in 2011, or while we were both still in the military. I was transitioning out of it at the time. I think, best friend, you had about 5 more years to go,
like 9 or 8.
Oh,
yeah,
a while to go.
Yeah,
but we met. Our kids were at like a cheerleader camp, so we got to know each other, and we just became best friends. Like, we tried so many different avenues to be entrepreneurs. We did some champagne connoisseurs. We had a book club for little girls.
Yeah.
And was bringing book club for boys on. And we was just like, you know what? She went out on her own. I went out on my own, and we were doing it. But I think we decided to come together, and we decided that, we're probably better together. And we talked about, doing a podcast that transitioned military to civilian life, because frankly, when we both got out of the military, it was very hard transition, because we're used to going in and say, I need you to do this.
Yeah, they weren't listening. So.
Yeah. I mean, it is a thing that I know there's a lot of support programs that kind of pop up around, because it is not an easy transition, right? If you go from in the military, I had this weird idea when I was in high school. I was like, oh, I'm going to join the Navy and be a cook on a submarine. That was like my goal in life. And here's how old I am. I sent away for the VHS tape that they would send for the recruiting.
Oh, you put that in a little thing and then you push play. Okay.
Yeah. And so I got it, and it was cool. It was like submarines going fast in the water and all that. And then I was like, hey, Mama, I'm thinking about this. And she goes, in the Navy, they tell you what to do all the time. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, you don't do what I tell you to do all the time. And I was like, oh, good point. So like when you're in, like a lot of stuff is kind of like figured out for you. Is that kind of the thing?
Yeah, they do tell you what to do. I had a hard time listening in the beginning. I probably didn't listen to my mom either. So why did I join, right? But they do tell you, they give you like specific what your routines are going to be, and you just have to follow them. And then you can think on your own after like the first 2 years or something. Yeah. I'm being facetious with that, but you really are encouraged to follow the rules, but also take the initiative in the military.
Yeah, it was a lot of structure, but they did a lot of teaching you how to be a leader, how to work well, teamwork. It was structure, which is why I think a lot of people prefer to hire military people, because they're going to be dedicated. They have the structure. They're going to, finish the job when the job is done, not when it's time to get off work. So
Yeah, I wonder then, like when you're out, right? Do a lot of people maintain their sort of military routine just out of habit or just because it feels safe or something, or is it like having the safety blanket ripped off and you're just like, oh shit, I got to figure out what to do now?
I think for me, it was just it's ingrained in me. It's like I've been out now for 13 years and I am still wake up at 6, ready to work out, just still structured with a lot of military things. What about you, best friend?
Nah, I don't think they did their big one. They didn't do their big one with me, baby. I was like, no, deuces. I have always, if you watch anything on my show, like I've had ADHD my entire life. So to focus while I was in there was a lot. So now that I don't have that regime hanging over me, I'm just wow. You know what I mean? Instead of getting up at 6, I'll get up at like 7:15. So wow. Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
I think for both of us, it's still instilled in us because I can see it with her a lot. Even the way that we manage our kids or tell our kids things to do is from a military standpoint. And I think we give advice from a military standpoint.
We do, yeah.
Even if we don't want to, it's just naturally ingrained in us.
And even if we're sick, we don't quit. Like that's total military. Like one time we were recording and I was like, you guys,
So sick.
I was sick as a dog, Chip. I mean, like the worst type of sickness. It was terrible. But she's like, let's go. Get yourself together. Patrick was so upset. I didn't tell you that. He was like, babe, no, you're too sick. I'm like, no, I gotta do this. So that part is military. That's stuck with us. Yeah.
Do you think that you joined because you like I don't know, but I think that maybe some of the people who join the military are already kind of like not quitters in the first place? Or were you like somebody who would have quit before and then they taught you not to quit? Or were you always kind of a tough cookie?
That's a good question.
Very good question. I think that some people come in as tough cookies and some people are taught to be tough cookies. I don't think you just go in because you already have naturally that skill set in you. I think it's something that is definitely taught. And even if if I had a little bit of it, they were able to completely pull it out of me. Yeah.
She's the toughest cookie in the bunch. Let me tell you. Yeah, I was like a jelly roll. And then I became like, flan. So like just a little tougher.
You graduated to flan. So still a little jiggle there, but slightly more stable.
Yeah.
Okay. Your comparison, not mine.
I have a question, Chip. Hold on, Chip.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Since I feel like with two lovely military ladies here, did you have any other military women that inspire you to join in addition to you all just maintaining your status while you were in service?
Great question.
That inspired us to join?
Yeah, like did you see, some general or colonel and be like, I want to be like her, and then so you signed up?
No, I didn't. I joined because I needed money for college. And I remember I was in my first year and I called my recruiter because I was like, dang, I can't afford to go back. And so that's why I joined. But if I could pivot a smidge with the question, there were a lot of military women in there that encouraged me to continue because I wanted to stop after the first iteration, the first 6 years. But there were some amazing military women that were like, no, like keep going, finish your 20. Yeah.
I joined because I quit college, was drinking every day. My mom was like, you're getting out of this house, you got to figure something out. So I was just like, you know what? Let me just go to the military. So it was nobody in my family. My father had went in for a few years, but no females in my family had went in the military. I was the first one. But now I'm happy to say that I have a niece that joined as well. So she's doing well.
Do you feel like now you both get to be examples for young women who are interested in serving?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with Booster Heels. I think it's like it's always been Miko's passion, you know,
Yeah.
to help little young girls.
Yeah.
And I think she just rubbed it off on me. We've been
Yeah.
friends so long, so I'm just like picking
I'm
up
like,
her
we got to give back, okay? We got to fortify. We got to pull from the marginalized communities and elevate. She's like, okay. So, yeah.
So that kind of brings me to a question that I hadn't written down, but I was thinking about it all day, like especially with what's going on and the turmoil and all of this. Which maybe it's better to get to that after we ask you about what's going on. So just remind me that I have this great idea for a question. I know that speaking about transitioning out, we talked about getting in. You know, vets need a lot of support with coming out of the military or in years and years afterwards. There's ongoing cuts at VA. You know, they're firing people left and right. And so are there independent veterans organizations that are stepping in to fill those gaps? Are they able to fill those gaps in support?
I think they are out there and they're doing what they can do. You know, if you need some assistance, they're the DAV,
VFW,
the VFWs. It's organizations like that that really are trying to support veterans as much as they possibly can. And you got to think that some of their resources have been cut as well, so they can't do as much as they used to be able to do. So as much as they can, they're still out there trying to support.
Yeah,
we had back, I don't know, a couple of years ago on the network, we had a show hosted by her name is Ebony. She just finished her PhD actually, and she was also a veteran. And she was working on like people transitioning out of the military who were needing like mental health access, and sort of focused on like how people can connect to those kind of resources. Do you ever feature that kind of stuff on the show, and do you sort of talk to those organizations?
Yeah, that is so interesting. Our I think that comes out the end of this month, but probably I want to say almost every show, we give information on, you know, resources to help. This particular show, because it is Men's Mental Health Month, we interviewed a veteran who gave a deep, just introspective look at his time and his story. And we have a lot of resources. This was our second guest on the show. And it was amazing, and it was harrowing, and it was it really highlighted, you know, the trauma and the PTSD that a lot of soldiers go through, or airmen, or, you know, Marines, or whatever branch you're in. And so we absolutely give those resources. My son is in the Young Marines, so we volunteer at a lot of, you know, say homeless shelters for vets, or anything that we can do. And they have a plethora of resources that I then take back after communicating with them, and then I'll drop it in our chats, or we might do a reel on it, or, you know, which we need to do is start putting it on our website. But yeah, absolutely, that's top tier in our wheelhouse of what we need to continue to do.
Yeah, I think we just recently did the commercial about it.
Yeah.
And in that commercial, we just tell them resources where you can find support if you need support. And basically, men don't open up like they should. So our message was like, you know, talk to somebody. It's okay to speak out and say something.
Yeah.
You want to give that information now in case anybody's listening, where they can
I
get
know ours was va.gov, but there's more information than that. We don't have, because we normally have our note cards. And so we're not as professional as ChipChat. Goodness gracious, man. But we can
call us professionals, Chip.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Be careful with that word.
Yeah, we can share the commercial, but it's on Boots to Heels on our website, on our Instagram and our YouTube. But you can start at va.gov, and then you'll see all the drop downs for, you know, especially since we're talking about mental health assistance.
One question I want to ask.
Website. All right.
Hold on, Chip. I felt like,
go ahead.
Where you mentioned the fact that, like, you know, mind you, that today, this month is men's mental health awareness, but Do you feel like in the military there is maybe a slight difference of the mentality with women and men? Did you ever notice that, especially someone who's, post-traumatic or anything of that nature?
Like in what way?
In any way, dealing with, like I said, dealing from post-traumatic or just the ordeal of being in the military, handling the stress of boot camp and all that stuff. Have you seen or been aware of the differences between a man and a woman in the military in that aspect?
Like the way they're treated, or just
That,
like
yeah,
overall?
yeah, that or how they've handled the life of a military person.
I don't know if I kind of noticed that. It's probably a lot different now. I went back in the day in the 1900s.
The late 1900s. Yeah, I had my 23-year-old coworker keeps calling it that, and I keep not liking
Yeah,
it.
that's so disappointing.
But when
Yeah.
I went through basic training, it wasn't spoke about as much as it is now. So it wasn't a separation of females and males. Of course, there's more males in the military than it is females. So they are a little tougher on males than they are females. But I think they force females to be just as tough and just as strong as they did males, just on a female level versus a male's level. But now that mental health and everything, anxiety, everything is so prevalent now, I think they do a lot more. I don't want to say catering, but they give them an opportunity to raise my hand. You say, hey, I'm having a rough day. And they don't go as hard on those personnel as they would. They didn't care back then when we were going through, like, you having a rough day, suck it up, let's go, let's keep moving.
But I agree with that. I also think that if you have sergeants that are in charge or commanders that were in the late 1900s,
yeah,
I think that they have to conform to a new normal. But honestly, the intrinsic, the attitude is still like this. Yeah, I don't want to say that we're like,
suck it up.
Just suck it up, but they can't say that, But I know sometimes, because I even think like, oh my God, suck it up. But I'm like, oh God, no, I can't get canceled from saying that. So let me calm down, because it's a new normal. We have to understand that mental health is real. But I think because we just have to suck it up so much, sometimes it's hard for us to lean into that the way we should. Yeah.
Secretary Hegseth said girls can't do things, so maybe you won't have to suck it up anymore. No, maybe he says you do have to suck more. I don't know. Secretary Hegseth doesn't seem to like women being in the military.
Right.
What he said, so like thank you, Brian. There are so many brave women who've served in combat who clearly are capable, and then here you have a Secretary of Defense who says that women can't serve in combat. That doesn't make sense to me, because obviously there have been thousands and thousands. What do you make of somebody who really doesn't seem too interested in half the population being part of the military?
I mean, I think it's sad that he would think that way, because women make the world go around. Without us, where would you be? And although I'm not necessarily for us being on the very front line where we're out there with the weapons and doing all the fire, but there is there is opportunities in the back for women to do things that we do every day, and to serve and defend our country without him thinking that we need to be barefoot and pregnant. So yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure he'd even let you be barefoot.
Right. Stiletto and pregnant. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. You have to look good. Whatever. That guy's a dummy. So let's talk about what's going on right now that the military's in the news, right? So Trump deployed he federalized 4,000 guardsmen, whatever they're called. They used to be called guardsmen. I think they're members of the National Guard in California. The president.
Yes, breaking news, just in time. Just an hour ago, a federal judge has suspended that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
So
read
pretty
it.
much everything's going back to Governor Newsom.
The case was in court today, so that sounds. I had figured that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
One of the nice things about being a Washingtonian is that we're all kind of lawyers, even if we're not really lawyers.
Yeah.
So we all have to know. And you know where we get it is from the no parking signs. You have to
Yeah.
have a law degree from Georgetown to figure out where you can park in the city. So, but anyway, so Trump federalized 4,000 troops in the California National Guard. Now that's been struck down in court. He also said he was deploying 700 Marines from Camp Pendleton to Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's like a big thing about you can't, deploy the active duty military inside the country, so much so that I think I was told one time that like you can't wear your uniform except if you're like going to work or on your way home from work. And that's like the only time you'll see people in their fatigues, like stopping at the grocery store, and then they come home. What do you feel about, like, what are the rules about active duty deployed or being in the continental U.S.?
That's definitely a policy for your uniform. You're supposed to wear your uniform to work, and if you need to stop by the grocery store, but you can't. You're not supposed to be in bars and everything doing those type of things. But here's where it's kind of sticky, because President Trump is the commander-in-chief of the military, and when he passed out those orders, no matter if we like it or not, you're supposed to just follow your orders and do what you're told. They're general orders that you have to follow. And unfortunately, this is the type of president, if you're not doing what I'm saying, if you're not on my side, then you're against me. So I'm ready to get rid of you. I am so not for him sending the Marine troops out there. It's supposed to be, when it's in your California, it's supposed to be the National Guard is supposed to do that.
Yeah. So guardsmen, it's these things called titles, right? So guardsmen fall under Title 32. When they're activated, they fall under Title 10. Mm-hmm. So he literally activated all of these guardsmen to make them active duty. Are we frozen? No. To make to make them active duty, when that means he took the power out of the commander's hands, meaning the state commanders, California commander. Was it necessary? Absolutely not, in my opinion. So the rule on that is, can he do it? He can, because he did. And it's only illegal if they find it illegal.
Well, they apparently did.
Yep. Yeah.
So in my capacity as a fake lawyer, I had a conversation with somebody who I think might be a real lawyer about like under what grounds this would be, unconstitutional. Yeah. And I said that it might really have to do with like a 10th Amendment argument. The 10th Amendment says that all of the powers not specifically enumerated in the Constitution revert to the states, which would include the militias, the controls, and all of that stuff. So again, I'm not a real lawyer. U.S. District Judge Charles R. Breyer ruled that Donald Trump acted improperly, quote, both exceeding the scope of his statutory authority and violating the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. He must therefore return control of the California National Guard to the governor of the state of California forthwith. You gotta love it when you get a forthwith in there. So again, not a real lawyer. Did get that right though. Haha. So I also heard that he like pulled up, he federalized like 4,000 troops, but only like 300 of them had like any real orders of like to do anything, and the rest were like sleeping on the floor in a building someplace.
Oh, that's kind of the case. Yeah. That's the case. Yeah, it's the hurry up and wait technique that the Army or the military has.
Yeah. So what were they doing over there?
They were waiting. They were preparing.
He put the order out, so they were following his orders. Like, it's what they're just taught to do in the military. You give us the order, we're going to follow your orders until we're told to go back.
but it appears that the order was like, go to this building and wait for me to tell you something else.
Yeah.
And
Pretty
unfortunately,
much.
military people, they're no strangers to that. That's what we do all the time. So
It's so
not
normalized.
like, right, it really is. If you're going to have an event that starts at, just like the Army's 250th birthday that's coming up, that's also happened to be Trump's
Yeah, we
birthday.
have thoughts about that.
Yeah.
We have to get
it's
into
happening this weekend, but
But
they're all waiting in buildings.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm sure there's somewhere waiting to, if the ceremony thing starts at 8 a.m., they're probably going to be there at 4 a.m. waiting to go out there and do whatever they need to do to support it.
Okay, great.
We've done it so
We've
many
done it so
times.
many times,
It's
especially like the
norm.
State of the Union. We camp out in the Stadium Armory down.
Yeah, that sounds awful. I don't think I really want to do that. Which
Your
is
mom will
probably
be right.
also a good reason why I didn't join the Navy. But
Yeah.
But it sounds like what you just read is saying that Trump was trying to deploy them as if it was a they're going to be deployed, but
Right.
he did not actually have anywhere to deploy them for any issues, so he just had to pull it back and leave it to the state to do the
Right.
National
So-
Guard.
Yeah, he didn't even have the authority to do that. Like he shouldn't.
There's-
'Cause-
yeah, there's kind of two parts to it, apparently. So, there are extraordinary circumstances under which the president can federalize the Guard, but
yeah.
generally speaking,
911 would have been a good case.
Yeah.
the Guard, when the Guard falls under federal control, it almost always is because the state has asked for that to happen.
Mhm.
Often it's like in cases where there's some sort of major emergency, like a flood or a disaster or a hurricane, the state calls out the Guard, but they need them to be working with the federal capacity, like FEMA or somebody else. So they'll nominally grant control to the feds to sort of use the Guard as they need it. And the last time, at least that I could recall, that the Guard was federalized by the president in objection to the governor of the state was in Arkansas, when the governor was like, I'm not letting black kids go to high school. And Ike was like, the hell you're not. And he sent the Guard to like go to high school with the kids to make sure that they could go to school. And
What
like,
year was this?
Ike like Turner. No, I'm kidding.
no, Ike like Eisenhower.
Yeah.
This was Little Rock 9. This was
Yeah, okay.
Ruby Bridges.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
as far as I can recall, like the last time the president took control of the Guard away from a governor was in enforcement of civil rights. And here we have an instance where the president hates civil rights and took control of the Guard away from the governor because he wants to chase brown people out of Los Angeles, which is
that's a terrible
Los
statement.
Angeles.
Yeah.
It's not the Angeles, it's Los Angeles. Like it is.
Right. Angeles.
Yeah, they're Angelinos. They're not. My God, dude, come on.
Yeah.
So anyway, like the ruling here apparently has to do with that he was legally meritless, that the law that he tried to use that said that there was some sort of an emergency, the conditions were not met. There was no emergency that would have enabled him to do this. So he's in violation of the statute there. And then in terms of the constitutional argument of the 10th Amendment, saying that because the Constitution doesn't grant the power to like snatch the Guard into the federal control, it therefore only belongs to the states unless this threshold has been met for the statute. So I mean, this seemed obvious to me. I'm sure it was obvious to them too, but like, one, they don't have real lawyers, and two, they probably were like, well, we're going to do it anyway and see if the courts can stop us. My question is, are they going to comply? Because the court can't really stop them. The court doesn't have an army, and Trump does. So what does this feel like to you? And here's where I was going to get to my like big question. Do you think stuff like this, with Trump politicizing the military and specifically politicizing the military to enforce what looks like racist policies, does this maybe make it less likely for Black and brown participation in military service?
Oh yeah, because I still have a lot of friends that are in, and I have a lot that a lot of them are recruiters, and they've mentioned that it's very difficult for them to even meet a quota of Black and brown um, to enter the military because of the psychotic, obese douchebag that's running the country right now. So, I mean, yeah, I agree with that because when you don't see that you're being represented or that you're even being taken care of from someone who is literally your commander in chief, it puts you at ease and you feel like you're going to be the first one that they're going to force into harm's way because they have no concern for you.
And it's kind of sad because a lot of people decide to go into the military to make a better life for themselves,
Right.
to help their parents out, to help their kids if they have any. And here it is, they're not wanting to go, or they're kind of scared to go because they're not sure what the commander in chief, the president, will do if he's going to force them to, hey, get on the front line and you be the punching bag for it. They just unsure of what, because one day, you never know what's going to happen with him. You never know what you're going to get.
I think it was maybe in the South Park movie where they kind of like played on that idea of sending the all black squad in first. and Chef was like, hey, why are we going in first?
Right. And that's probably why they're not signing up right now because they're not sure what he will do, because everything that he's doing now, it's clear that we're not his favorite. So.
And if he's like freaking deploying ICE for the people that voted for him, I mean, come on, right? Like,
do you think, as it stands, he's clearly interested in using the military to manage the country?
Right.
What if you're put in a situation where you're told to shoot at other Americans? Like, that feels bad.
Yeah, that's been happening. I mean, granted, they're using like pellets or whatever, right? But those things still hurt. That happened in LA recently,
right? Well, the cops are used to shooting at other Americans. I believe that's like the first thing that they teach them. Like, welcome to the academy. Would you like to shoot at other Americans? Here's your badge.
That's not well enough.
Yeah. Well, how do you know which ones to shoot at? You'll know. So, yeah. But like, the military is supposed to defend all of the Americans. I'm one of the Americans. I would like to be defended, not shot at by. So did they tell you anything about that? Did they say like, hey, there may be a time when you might have to like shoot at other Americans?
The revolution will not be televised, Chip. So we don't know. I mean, there's theories out there, right? There's definitely theories, and there's conspiracists who believe that to be the case. I'm not shy of that thought. Now, the way the world is going is kind of scary, but I don't have any true knowledge of if that.
Well, I am beyond not shy about it. I'm going to take this opportunity to say the thing that I have been saying on this show, that I will continue to say on this show, is that this is not a parade that is going to happen on Saturday. This is the beginning of an occupation. They are going to move. They're not spending $40 million to move a bunch of stuff around to have a goddamn party. They're going to bring all that stuff here, and it ain't leaving. And the people ain't leaving neither. They're going to put them in the empty federal buildings. They're going to establish some sort of active duty garrison here in the district, and they're going to stick around. And what they're going to do with it, I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I did predict the violence around ICE raids, and I predicted all of these other things about this guy. So I think that's the next move. I don't quite
Wow.
know what comes right after that. Stay tuned next week, and we'll let you know. But
Yeah, let us know. We're gonna be tuned in.
yeah, so I don't see this getting better, but I do see this getting vastly worse very quickly. Which brings me to my next question. How can people tune into your show? Because they're going to need to, like, you know, get some tips on some of this stuff.
Before we move on to our show, I would like to say that Trump did not sign my retirement papers. Thank God I got out in time.
Right.
Wait, who signed mine?
Did Trump?
What year did you retire?
What year did you get out?
No.
Oh,
No,
Trump.
no, 2019.
Yeah, he was president then.
No, I don't have any retirement papers. I
Oh,
don't.
that's true. Because your disability.
I do.
Did he sign it?
No, so you can find us on. You can certainly find us on Boots to Heels _podcast on all platforms. All platforms.
Yep.
And you've got new episodes come out when?
Every Wednesday at noon.
Wow. In unison, no less.
So goofy right there.
And do you have any other projects, things that are going on, poetry stuff you want to tell people to pay attention to?
You know, I am a poet, and I do host every third Monday, at Woolly Mammoth in DC. I co-host there, and I am just consistently writing. But at Miss Miko Reed on Instagram is where you can find where I post like new stuff, new poems and everything. Yeah, and then I'm gonna throw it to you for your fitness life.
Well, I am into fitness due to the military, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to go back to our Boots to Heels because I didn't mention the fact that one of the things that we realized is that when we was doing our transitions to get out, we didn't have a lot of support on exactly what to do. You know, they throw you in this training for 2 weeks and it's just throwing so much knowledge at you and so much information that you're trying to catch it, but you just can't.
Right.
So what we decided to do is create an ebook for
retiring, transitioning, Army veteran, Army Marines, military folk. Like we have an ebook, and we are debating on if it's going to come out in July or August, but it'll be out this summer. And it's really a Boots to Heels from our obviously military boots to corporate or whatever your entrepreneurial dreams are. Yeah. If you want to be a content creator, whatever it is, how do you transition, right? And what resources do you have? Mm-hmm. And so that this ebook is going to give you step-by-step guidelines on the perfect way to transition and all the resources that, you know, this good old America has for you.
Well, if this country's still functioning when that happens,
absolutely.
I hope so.
When it comes out, will you come back on the show to tell everybody about it?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Do I have to read if I get an ebook, or can I get it to like talk to me? I don't know how ebooks work.
You might have to read.
All right, we're gonna
now they have this thing where you can just tell Siri to read it to you.
Yeah.
I don't read. That's for nerds, but Tez does that, so he can do the reading, and then he'll tell us about it. Because that's his job.
Or we'll read it to you.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. So you got to record an audiobook.
Yep.
I love that.
You reading weird military transition rules.
Jargon.
Well, you know, it sounds weird, but we used uniforms for 22 years for me and best friend. 25 years. So when we got out of the military, it's like, what do I wear?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Chip, all we had was like
brown socks
and hoochie outfits. No, I'm kidding. We had like Army and club. Like there was no in between. Like I went to my kids' parent-teacher conference in uniforms. So
right, exactly.
You might be surprised to know this, but I also only have my uniform. So like I'm an air conditioning professional by
Oh.
trade. I am now in management, which I don't particularly like, but you know, and I had like a uniform my whole life. I never had to think about what I wore ever. And then
Oh,
yeah, it's great. And then when I got to be management, they're like, you can't wear the uniform anymore. I was like, well, this sucks. Now I got to figure out what to wear. So I'll never forget it. Back when this show started 10 years ago, my original co-host was Larry King without suspenders. And Larry is my hetero life mate, and he is much more fashion conscious than I am. And I said, Larry, I have to wear grown-up clothes. And he goes, that's not going to go well for you. And I said, that's right.
right.
So he took me to Kohl's or someplace and like picked me out shirts that would all go with the pants that would all go with each other. And like, you know, maybe jackets or something. And he's like, this is your new uniform. Just pick one of these every day and it will work. And now it's been 15 years since that, and it's working. So you can make a uniform even if you don't have a uniform. And then these are my hoochie clothes. You know,
you gotta have the ebook. You need to put that in your ebook, Chip. Like put that. Yeah.
How to make your own uniform and wear football T-shirts as your club gear.
Yes, and flag hats, which I want that cowboy hat. Yeah.
Yes,
I want it for the Beyonce concert. Anyway.
You have to love America to get the hat. And so that's how I got it. I'm not, in case anybody's watching is like, why is he wearing that hat? You know, I love this hat, but also because like, I don't think that the Trumpistas get to be the ones who have the flag. That's ours. You know, we love America. We get our own flag. Like, stop stealing our shit, Nazis. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. Now, do you want to stay on as guest co-host and make Patrick look not adequate, or do you want to go home because it's a school night? It's totally up to you.
It's up to you, best friend.
I know. Well, I mean, it is a school night, but I'm all for sticking it to the man, but he's not the man. So I don't know. I think we're going to exit.
Okay. That sounds fine. That's what we had planned anyway. And so we are prepared for that. So see, just like the military, we're always prepared. We're trying our best.
Yeah. We've been in buildings. Yes.
Yeah. We'll just sleep there on the floor. That looks really bad for their backs, but you know, who cares? Trump doesn't care.
It is. I've had
used to it. Lay on your rucksack and you're all right.
Yeah.
Are you though?
I've had spinal surgery. Yeah. No, you're not all right.
No, you're not all right. Okay, good. Well, then
soldier.
Go stretch your backs and get some rest. We're going to take a break. If you want to tell everybody one more time where they can follow the show and all that stuff. Uh-oh, we broke their internet. Brian, fix it quick.
I can't fix it. They got to pop in and out. Hello, ladies. You still there?
If they're still there, pop in, pop out. But go to Boots 2 Heels, and it's Boots and then a 2, and then Heels, not heel like get healthy, but heel HEELS _ podcast, Boots 2 Heels podcast. And then you can find all their stuff and you can watch their show and you can have a great time and do all of that. Okay. Well, that was a cool transition.
Yeah. Literally.
Did they pop back? Nope. Okay.
Nope, they popped out.
All right. Well, we'll check in with them in a while, I guess, when the ebook comes out. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got some updates of what's going on in the world. Actually, a lot of shit has happened in the last couple of minutes, which we're going to need to tell everybody about. So stay tuned. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Street balls.
Street balls.
We're in the middle of a hostile government takeover. I want to talk about it, but I'll be late for work. And if you say, wait a minute, do we have to stop this? We had one, but you didn't want that lady in office. Hostile. This ain't about left and right, need to worry about up and down. This ain't about left and right, you better stop messing around. This ain't about left and right, need to worry about up and down. And if you say, wait a minute, do we have to stop this? We had one, but you didn't want that lady in office. Hostile government, take over. Hostile government, take over. Hostile government, lay forward. Hostile government, take over. Hostile government, lay forward.
All right, welcome back to ChipChat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I am your host, Chip. With me is Brian.
Hello.
Hello. Okay.
I keep it simple.
So, this segment's called What's Going On in LA? So, Los Angeles is a city. It's the second largest city in the United States. It's in California. It's on the coast. It's huge, not just in total number of people, but also like spread out. It's like twice the size of Rhode Island or something. And
You ever been there?
yeah, I've been to LA.
Okay.
It's a lot of times actually. And like also another thing to know about LA is that LA County, which is geographically large, also has something like 90 individual cities inside of it because they drew these like borders of cities, and some of the cities are like surrounded by other cities, or they have these weird like this street is in the city but that street's not in the city, and it's totally nuts. And
They still call it Los Angeles.
yeah, it's all LA, but like but like Compton, for example, a place people know, is its own city. It's not in it's in Los Angeles County, but it is its own city in Los Angeles County. And Watts is its own city in Los Angeles County, and like Culver City is its own city inside Los Angeles County. It is crazy how this looks. If you looked at it on a map, you'd lose your mind. I mean, it's crazy. That's not really what we're here to talk about. So here's what's been going on. In LA, the Trump administration basically had been sending ICE to just raid the shit out of everywhere. They were grabbing people out of restaurants. They were grabbing people from Home Depot. They were grabbing people out on the street. They're just like anybody who looked a little bit Mexican, they were just running up on them, throwing them in an unmarked van. All the agents were not badged. They weren't like identified. They were wearing masks. It was very terrifying because nobody knew if these were like legitimate or if they were, gangs or what. A bunch of the people who got snatched up by these guys are citizens, have status of various kinds. That didn't seem to matter. There was no due process going on. The Trump administration hastily deported several dozen of these people before they had a chance to even go talk to lawyers. They were being prohibited from talking to their lawyers. All of this is violently illegal. None of that is legal. There is a whole process for a deportation. You have to have a warrant. You have to have a final order of deportation. You have to do all this stuff. They weren't doing any of that. So the people of LA were like, nah, man, we're not doing that. And they came out to protest. Now, here's the thing you need to know about Los Angeles. They have a way of doing things. Okay. When the Dodgers win, they spray paint things and kind of riot a little bit. When the Dodgers lose, they spray paint things and kind of riot a little bit. When the Lakers lose, they spray paint things and kind of riot a little bit. When the Clippers lose, nobody notices. But they're just kind of wired to do this thing, and they protest a lot, and they're good at it. They're organized. They know what they're doing. And also, the police in LA are used to it. They know how to handle it. It's a pretty common occurrence for them. in the same way that like DC police know how to handle a protest, right? It happens here near constantly.
Right.
And they're like, all right, we're put a little like perimeter around these guys. We'll let them do their thing. You know, they got a First Amendment right. We're going to let them chant. They'll let them sing. We're going to let them do whatever they want. They want to march around as long as they don't smash too much stuff or they don't like do anything serious. You know, we might arrest a couple dozen of them, but like, you know, standard operating procedure. Well, Trump saw that there were people protesting, and then
certain people,
and they were, some of them waving Mexican flags. Right? You know, they're in a part of the world that was Mexico until like 5 minutes ago. And anyway, he didn't like that. And so he was like, oh no, this is an invasion. All people who were born here in California are invading the United States, which definitely includes California. And so he was like, this is an invasion. I'm calling out the guard to go attack them. This is an insurrection. This is a rebellion. He used all of those words. And that's not what it was at all. They also, like on Fox News, were describing this as the city was burning down, that it was under attack, that it was some sort of lawless hellscape. They were playing videos from games and movies that they claimed were happening in LA that were not happening, that never happened at all. And like, there were protests. There were a few cars that got set on fire. They were Waymos that the protesters ordered to where they were protesting to then set on fire, I think to create barricades or something. But like, that was it. And it was all within like a 1 square mile area.
Yeah.
Very small situation.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell by a lot of the news reporting that this is a well-organized protest march. Pretty much it's like, again, like you said, it's standardized. It, you know, California has been used to this for years, or better yet, you can say centuries if you want to.
They know how to handle it.
Yeah, they know how to handle it. I think, again, you're talking about a 80-year-old man who if he saw something going crazy, again, certain people going nuts, it's like, oh my God, it's the LA riots again. Send in the National Guard, or again, and again, he is. The way I think a lot of people have been saying is like, he's just portraying a person who's trying to be a man of action by deploying a certain amount of people, especially the military. Now you're sending in the National Guard to stop something that really it wasn't that highly aggressive. You just intensify the aggressiveness by deploying the National Guard.
Yeah, he was looking for an excuse to do this no matter what. He would have seen the Puppy Bowl on TV and called out the guard. Like, this is not a legitimate response to the stimulus that he saw. He had this plan. He was meaning to do this from the very get-go. And so and it inflamed the situation. And Governor Newsom said, and Mayor Bass said, this is inflaming the situation. If you bring out a bunch of military to come, even if they're just standing around with their vehicles and their guns and looking kind of imposing and stuff, these people who are already pissed off are gonna get more pissed off.
Right.
And
you can even add into the police chief. He literally says, we can handle this.
Yeah,
we've done this before. We're used to this. It's, as long as we can maintain the fire, so to speak. But all you've done is just add more fuel to this. Where was
Trump federalizing the guard when the city actually was on fire a few months ago in Pasadena and Altadena? Where was the federal guard response there to help these?
And they were ready to go.
They needed it.
And I think, again, it's like, I think one news reporter organization, whatever, they stated the fact is like, Trump is very selective of certain instances that needs to be taken care of.
Well, let's be honest what he's doing here. This is standard fascist playbook, right? Yeah. You create an emergency and then you respond, usually with the military or some sort of security force, to that emergency that you created, and you tell everybody that the situation is so dangerous that certain things that are normal, like civil liberties or elections, have to be paused or suspended because it's just too dangerous right now. But don't worry, I can fix it. And you have to
you can't.
Well, no, of course not. But that's how fascism works.
Right.
That's what authoritarian states do, and they maintain that constant state of emergency so that they can then continue to take away people's constitutional civil rights. So he tried that here. And then he also was trying to deploy the Marines somehow, whose main job is to shoot at people, into do what? It's not clear. They never showed up yet. And, Hegseth doesn't know how that works either. So all of that is to say, we knew that this was going to go to court. We knew that that Newsom was going to challenge it in court. He said as much. The hearing was today. Here's what we know about that. A federal judge on Thursday agreed to block the Trump administration from deploying the California National Guard, granting a request by Governor Gavin Newsom and saying that the president acted illegally in dispatching the troops amid immigration protests that have spread from Los Angeles to other cities in the state. Here's a quote from the judge that Trump, quote, both exceeded the scope of his statutory authority and violated the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution. He must therefore return control of the California Guard to the governor of the state of California forthwith. That's where we got the forthwith, right? Well, there's a little more here. So Newsom went to court, asked for a restraining order saying that, they need to give the control of the Guard back. The Trump administration called his request legally meritless and said that it would jeopardize the safety of the Department of Homeland Security personnel and interfere with the federal government's ability to carry out operations. The judge, yeah, I know. The judge had an answer for that.
Oh, God.
Let's see. Breyer opened the hour-long hearing with 45 minutes of questions about Trump's decision to order the Guard into Los Angeles. He questioned whether the president followed the appropriate statute, including whether he had appropriately made the order through Newsom rather than acting unilaterally. At one point, Breyer brandished a paper copy of the U.S. Constitution, reading aloud Article 2, which describes the powers of the executive branch. Brett Shumate, a lawyer for the U.S. Attorney's Office, defended Trump's actions, arguing that Governor Newsom, quote, was merely a conduit for the president's orders. The president doesn't have to call up the governor and invite him to Camp David and have a summit to negotiate for a week on what are the terms, and we're going to call up the Guard in your state and what are the terms for deployment. No, there's one commander-in-chief, and the states are subservient to the president. That was his argument. He later argued that the demand for the restraining order was inappropriate because federal troops in Los Angeles were only protecting federal personnel and property, and they weren't engaged in law enforcement. The judge, however, was not having that. Quote, we're talking about the president exercising his authority, and the president is, of course, limited in that authority. That's the difference between a constitutional government and King George, said Breyer, who incidentally was a former Watergate prosecutor. And you may say that, hey, that name sounds a little familiar. It's because his older brother is Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, who just retired. Quote, it's not that a leader can simply say something and it becomes. It is a question of a leader, a president, or governor following the law as set forth in both the Constitution and the states. The state attorney general's office concurred with lawyer Nicholas Green, calling Trump's attempt to expand his powers, quote, breathtaking in scope. They are saying that the president can federalize the National Guard and deploy it to the streets of a civilian city whenever he perceives that there is disobedience to an order. This is an expansive and dangerous conception of the federal executive power. So the Trump people have appealed this to the Ninth Circuit. I think it's very obvious, like what the statute here says. I think it's also very obvious what the constitutional argument is. I think it would be shocking to see a court find anything other than this. So I guess we'll see. Okay. However, not to be outdone, in Texas, Greg Abbott also deployed his National Guard to several states. I like that he has a clip-on podium for his wheelchair. That's adorable. What a stand-up guy. So he deployed the Guard to several cities, including Dallas, I think, and a few other places. Cool, I guess.
I again, why?
I don't know.
Because it's like, okay, there's nothing. I mean, mind you, again, there have been throughout the country, various parts of the country, that there have been protest marches against what's been happening in, of course, in Los Angeles. But again, I think Abbott is kind of like trying to be like the actual Trump Jr. and following in his footsteps to do something reactionary to something that doesn't need any reaction to.
Yeah, it's very, very clear that he is following that same playbook of just to militarize the situation as much as possible to create a dangerous emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody makes a mistake and it turns into a catastrophe, or you get just having the presence of it is sort of meant to inflame the situation. I can't see what else it could possibly do.
Let me point this out for everybody who probably you've seen this on social media or you haven't, but there have been two instances where the police has fired upon, mind you, they use rubber bullets, but still fired upon citizens with no provocation, they were never provoked whatsoever.
Right.
One incident where a young woman was returning home from wherever she wanted to get to her home, which the police has blocked off. She's tried to explain to them and everything, and they were not having it and they weren't listening. And he shot her in the stomach, and this was fully recorded. The second incident was an Australian reporter. She got shot in the leg, and everyone's probably seen that. And again, trying to report the story of what's been going on, and pretty much, the officer who shot, allegedly, where I'm putting air quotes here, was whatever reason just shot her at her leg for no reason. Just even having their weapon pointing at her for no reason. She is just reporting what's going on.
Well, it was obvious that she was a reporter because she had the camera pointed at her and she had a microphone in her hand.
So for all this thing is like, in addition to adding in the National Guard, and keep in mind the National Guard is supposed to guard something, and pretty much they're here to protect and the American citizens when they're deployed by what's supposed to be by the governor of the state.
And they're citizen soldiers. These are people.
These are citizens. They're not even fully active. Some of these are part timers, and to me, it's like, again, putting more fuel to this thing to where it's mind boggling. We keep saying, what the hell are you guys doing? It's like you're just bitter old men angry about something that only and won't tell us why, except for the fact is like you just don't like certain people.
This is an attempt to seize power away from the U.S. Constitution and from American voters.
That's where I want to get to. To me, it's like we've been under this second regime of Trump for almost 5 months, and for whatever reason, it's like, look, he last I checked, you put your hand on a Bible and literally said you will protect all articles of the Constitution. You said yes for a second time, and you have broken so many of them. Why?
You may be shocked to know this, Brian, but Donald Trump is a goddamn liar.
I know that, except for certain other people, especially those who live in Gotham.
Look, the issue here is, when will a Republican say so? That's where the problem is.
And that someone, again, we saw the red states that voted for him and gave him this stuff. But mind you, there's, if you see other tidbits online, you'll see how this was, Kamala won this by a landslide. But to me, it's like, yeah, there's no Republican. There may be a small few, but they're keeping their mouth shut. And that's the thing where it's like unless they have the balls, the cojones, and stand up and say, okay, enough's enough. We can't do this. And unfortunately, there are certain Republicans that we know either have died or have left office and really have no voice there. And pretty much we're run by a bunch of knuckleheads up in there.
Well, they're not just knuckleheads. They're complicit in this destruction of the United States. And that's the thing to think about this. The specifics of it are almost kind of irrelevant because what they're doing is unmaking the country. Case in point is today, a sitting senator, Alex Padilla, who is the senior senator of the great state of California, attended a press conference where Kristi Noem, who is the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, was telling people about the, ICE stuff that's going on there. And he stood up and approached the microphone to ask her a question at a press conference where people ask questions. And she did not handle that well at all. Her goons, her security, DHS security, grabbed Senator Padilla, who told them, I am Senator Alex Padilla of California. And they hustled him out of the room, threw him on the ground, put his hands behind his back, cuffed him, and whisked him out of the building. We know this because it was a press conference and everybody had a goddamn camera pointed at them. So it was recorded from 8 different angles. Padilla's staff was there recording it because they figured that something was going to happen and they better be ready just in case, or at the very least they were going to get good footage of him asking a question. Attacking the senators is an example of fascism. Yeah. So what happened after that is that Adam Schiff, who's the junior senator from California, and current Speaker Jeffries went to the floor, to the Capitol steps. They had a press conference. Guess what they did? They let people ask some questions. They stood there and they said, "This is a disgrace. This is a shame. This is un-American. This is unpatriotic. It's blah 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 blah." Cool, great, we get that. Senators went to the floor. Democratic senators went to the floor, called this all kinds of things. Chuck Schumer said, "We want an investigation in this." But you know what? Not a single Republican said anything along those lines. None of them. And it is going to be the Republicans who are going to have to save the Republic. They are going to have to break with this. But they didn't do that. Instead, Mike Johnson went out and told everybody that Padilla should be censured for charging at the Secretary of Homeland Security. That's his exact words. He said that he charged at a cabinet member. That's not what happened. Mike Johnson didn't see the video, or if he did, he's lying about it. He's lying. They know better, and they're lying about it. Look, y'all Republicans think you're good and because you're on the side with the guy. Right now you are, right up until you're not. And Congressman Walsh figured that out beforehand, and now he's a Democrat. And you know why? Because he came on our show and began his transition to the literate side of the world. We get credit for that, by the way. We scored one.
Ding.
Yeah, right. But we've really crossed several lines just this week that the president called out the guard in controversion of the governor of that state. He deployed active duty Marines inside the borders of the United States in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. He is now acting illegally after having being beaten court for doing those things. He had his goon squad attack a U.S. senator. What's next? He's got an occupation force ready to go to occupy the District of Columbia. If you can imagine what they did to Padilla with a few security and cops there in DHS building in Los Angeles, what will they do to the U.S. Senate with all of these soldiers at his disposal. Will they arrest the Democratic members of the U.S. Senate and hold them hostage of some kind? I don't know. It is within the realm of possibility.
That's where I felt like one of the questions I wish was asked to these ladies. When is a time to where you do not listen to your commander in chief?
Well, that's a good question to ask, Brian. Because fortunately, I have asked some people about that. Do you want to know?
Sure.
Okay. I've talked to several people who are like colonels and above about this question. What do you do when the president gives you an illegal order? Every man I talked to within the ranks said the president, they don't want to talk about hypotheticals. The president hasn't given any illegal orders, and they don't think he will. Well, he's already given an illegal order now. So I guess you're wrong about that. But basically, I asked them, like, hey, orders are, they have to be legal in order to be followed, right? And they said yes. And I said, who decides that? Is that a JAG thing or what? And they said, yeah, the JAGs basically review an order and determine its legality. If it's legal, then they let it go down from the command to, whoever has to implement the order. If it's not legal, I said, what do? They usually recommend the changes that the command would need to make in order to make it legal. Like, instead of using such and such set of rules, you have to use these other set of rules.
Okay. So let's simplify is like this. You did your homework wrong. You were given the answers. So you erased all the wrong answers and you put in the correct ones.
Yeah. And usually the question of legality is kind of around the edges, that the fundamental basic concept of the order is still implementable, but there might be some fuzzy bits around the edge. Like, you can't use these kinds of you can't have this set of rules of engagement in this condition. You have to use these other set of rules of engagement, but the overall mission is still executable. So it's very rarely that it's like a wholesale, this is not legal. But if the command gave an order that was illegal and the JAGs looked at it and go, oh yeah, this is illegal, the command can basically say, well, you're fired. We're overruling you. We're telling the whoever has to implement it to go ahead and do it anyway. And then it falls to the company level or to the whoever it is that has to actually implement the order. Are they willing to do something that the JAGs have ruled is not legal? Because they've been ordered to do so by their commanders. You could see this as if you had a general that went rogue and he told his companies to go do something, that that could happen, right? And so there's movies about that. You could have this where you have a field captain who's gone crazy and decided he's off some personal vendetta. I mean, there's movies upon movies upon movies about this kind of thing.
But I think mind you, yeah, we've seen a lot of movie aspects where it's someone within the military itself.
Right.
The only time, let's say again in fiction, where we see someone of the commander in chief level has done it, very rarely, because we keep giving this image that the fact that the president has some moral ideology to sort of restrain himself from doing something chaotic.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people forget now, even with his first term to now, it's like this man has no morals.
That's right.
And unfortunately, it's like he has completely burned the checks and balances of everything. And I think that, as much as we say this fact, it's like, oh, Trump is taking us into a new precedent of how to deal with how to handle the country in this such situations. And it's like, look, yeah, because we would never expect someone like this to happen. And unfortunately, it's like we saw it the first time. We figured it's like, okay, maybe we learn our lessons. Maybe we can quote unquote protect ourselves and prevent this shit happen again. No, because we allowed him to stick around for those extra months. We had a chance to put him in jail, but no, he throws in a whole bunch of bullshit to block, his trials in New York, and we couldn't get him. We got him convicted, but we couldn't put him in jail because why? He was running for election, and it's like to this day we're still trying to wonder. It's like how you allow a person running for president who was dealing with a trial.
He's a convicted criminal. Again, this is where it's going to have to come from Republicans. They're going to have to see this as so far out of bounds. When he sent a violent mob to kill Mike Pence, they briefly were like, "Oh, this is not okay." But they all basically got over that and decided to forgive all those people that tried to kill them. So
I think now it's like, mind you, and this was highly pointed out when a lot of the Republican senators and congressmen were doing their whatever press tours to their public, talk to their residents and stuff like that, and they were chewing them out. It was like, what the hell are you doing? What, you're supposed to represent us, and it seems like you're representing yourself to try to stay in that seat as long as possible to cuddle up to this nut job. We didn't want this. We want you, and unfortunately, it's like I really like the fact that it's like there's this one person from Arizona. She's trying to get into be a representative, and I've been following her of late, and I did donate to her campaign. And she's young, she's vibrant, everyone thinking of her as like the next AOC and all that stuff. But the thing I'm trying to point out is like you need that young voice out there who's saying it's like, this is wrong. And if the young people are saying in that, and the older people aren't because they're so old and want to say, I want to stay in my job for so long as possible, but it's like, look, you've been corrupted literally in that seat, and now that the fact is like you want to stay there as long as possible, especially if you're not going to move up, because it's like, look, you're not going to be if you're a representative, full well you're not going to be a darn senator. And if you're a senator, you don't want to fear the fact and get blown out trying to run for president. So you want to stay in those seats for as long as possible. But damn it, that means you're not representing the people anymore. You're just representing yourself and just staying there. And it's unfortunate that that's like the people that constantly vote them in over and over again, figuring it's like either they're going to change to help benefit them, but at the same time, they really don't.
The voters are voting for these people without really thinking about who they are. But youth is one thing. Dave Hogg recently, gave up his campaign to take over the DNC or be, vice chair of the DNC because it's clear that the party establishment's not ready for the youth to take control of that. But all of that does not matter. I want to be very clear. People like us deriding Trump as being a lawless, authoritarian fascist does not matter, because we already knew that. We already thought that. We already believed that. What matters is when Republicans are willing to say that too. And where will that line be? We don't know. We have crossed line after line after line. And the people who tried to kill Mike Pence received a pardon from Trump. And the people who danced and sang in the streets of Los Angeles had the guard called out on them by Trump. And the Republicans sat there and cheered the guard and threatened a U.S. senator for charging at a cabinet secretary that didn't actually happen. Where is the line? Where have you no shame is the question. Where is the line? What will need to happen for Mike Johnson or Mitch McConnell or any of these guys to say, you know what? That's it. I'm fucking done with this. I would have thought January 6th was it. What will make Ted Cruz break? Trump calling his wife ugly, saying that his dad killed people, calling him the Zodiac killer. None of that. None of that personal shit fazed old Raphael. Attacking him with his paramilitary proxies on January 6th. Did that faze old Raphael? It did not. Josh Hawley ran in terror ran in terror from these guys with their buffalo horns and their sharpened pointy flags. And did it faze him? Not one fucking iota. So what will need to happen here? He's going to break every law. He's going to break every convention. He's going to break every promise that he's ever made. If these guys aren't ready to understand that, then we need to make some other preparations about what's going to happen next. I know that these guys are coming here to occupy the city. What they're going to do, I don't know. But to round up or imprison or otherwise contain Democratic members of Congress, I think is well within the bounds of what they're planning to do. What will happen then? Will Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley say, yeah, those guys are a bunch of assholes, detain them, without thinking for a moment that they could be the next ones detained? I don't know, but we should be ready for it. We should all be ready for it, because everything I keep saying on this show comes fucking true. Maybe I should stop saying stuff.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, while we've been on the air, Israel bombed Iran again.
Yep.
They attacked something like a couple dozen sites. They killed the General Hossein Salami. What a great name. Hossein Salami. He's the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're trying to kill all of their nuclear scientists. Israel sees Iran having a nuclear bomb as an existential threat. I think that's a fairly decent way to look at it. The rest of the world doesn't seem to be able to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, partly because Trump tore up the deal in his first term. There was a method to keep these guys contained where the whole world, including China and Russia, agreed to it, and Trump fucking obliterated that. So the Iranians are like, well, fuck, I guess there's no reason to make a deal with these Americans. They're all just going to go back on it anyway. And so they're just doing whatever the hell they want to do. The Israelis aren't going to stand for that, so they're doing whatever the hell they want to do while still maintaining a genocide in Gaza. So, hooray. Fucking, what's the point of doing the rest of the show? I don't know.
True. Well, I know. Yeah.
Here, you want to take a break, or you want to go to a piece of good news?
There's some good news. Let's get some good news.
Okay.
Let's alleviate. We can't take a break on some bad crap. It's like
all right. Well, here's a good story, and then we can take a break. The federal judge presiding over Mahmoud Khalil's case on Wednesday ruled that the Trump administration, for now, cannot deport or detain the Columbia University activist based on a determination by Lowell Marco. The judge's preliminary injunction will not take effect until Friday, that's tomorrow, allowing the government time to appeal. He said that the preliminary injunction will start at 9:30 a.m. on Friday. So, when everybody gets to work. So basically, the judge said that Rubio was out of bounds when he used an obscure provision of the Immigration Nationality Act of 1952 to justify the removal. He said that the judge said the provision, Rubio had argued that the provision allowed the Secretary of State to, quote, personally determine whether Khalil should remain in the country. The judge, Michael Fairbears, that's another great name, Farbears? I don't know. Farbiarz. Fairbears.
Care Bears.
There you go. Judge Michael Carebears determined that Khalil could not be removed or detained based on Rubio's determination because, you got to have due process, man. That's how the laws are written. Fifth Amendment, 14th Amendment, whatever. Maybe I should be a fake lawyer. I'm better at it than the Trump lawyers, that's for sure. A spokesman for DHS has allegedly said that Khalil, quote, acted to glorify and support terrorists. Doesn't seem that that's the case. He hasn't been charged with anything except, going to Colombia, which I guess is a thing. He's married to an American citizen. She's a doctor, by the way. They have a newborn baby that he wasn't there for the birth of because he was detained by the ice cubes. So, great. Hooray. It's good that so Khalil's going to be out at 9:30 in the morning, and we'll all get to share a sandwich with him. I don't know what we're going to do to celebrate. Better not protest or like march around while we're celebrating or get the goddamn guard called out on us. This is a perilous situation, guys. I don't know like who needs to hear it, but if you're Jewish in America, things are not safe. Everybody thinks that we're out here, bombing everybody. We are not. Netanyahu is. We are not the same person. If you're an American who loves democracy or the U.S. Constitution, this is not a safe place for you because the Trump administration, the Trump regime is no longer operating within the bounds of the Constitution. They are doing what the fuck else they want, whenever the fuck they want it. If you are a service member, you're being asked to do things that you know are illegal, that are putting yourselves in legal jeopardy when all of this gets sorted out. You're being asked to do things that are un-American, to attack fellow Americans. You're being asked to do things that are immoral. If you're a member of the ICE cubes of any flavor, whether it's Customs and Border, ICE or DHS of any other kind, you're being asked to do something that you know is morally reprehensible. And somewhere there's going to have to be a lot of Americans who have to make a lot of decisions individually. And then collectively, once they've made that decision individually. We're close to it. I don't think we make it through the summer. So do with that what you will, but build up your capacity as best as you can. Okay. Speaking of which, I'm going to go build up some capacity while we take a break. Brian, do you have something terrible lined up, or you've already...
Of course.
You've already committed that felony. No, you're going to do it again. Okay.
Yes.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Nice.
Stuck on stupid on stuck on stupid on stuck on stupid on stuck on stupid on stupid on stupid on stupid on stupid on stupid on stuck on stupid 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 on stupid.
Hey, Mr. Humanoid over here thinking I lied for a sec. I guess the worst you could do is you might get upset, so here we go. When did everybody get to go nuts so? I thought the whole goal was to get not so, like a Nazi. Not so, right on the right side of history, I guess you could wish for a bright side. But that would be stupid, like making the same mistakes. Like killing brain cells just to save some space. Stupid.
Stuck on stupid 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 on stupid.
They say that stupid is as stupid does. What does that mean? If you do something stupid, then stupid you is getting a buzz or having a bad week. Time to recharge the battery, which usually means more stupid decisions. But great stories, great time, and great fun. New traditions, more bad decisions. Better stop before you see the prison, stupid. If you lucky, maybe Cupid pay you a visit and you could be stupid in love, stupid.
Stuck on stupid on stupid on stupid on stupid on stupid on stupid on stuck on stupid 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 on stupid.
people in the back. Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I am your host, Chip. With me is Brian.
Hello.
Brian, that's old school AI now at this point.
Yeah. So I think the modern day AI now has, they expanded the lyrics instead of just giving us the chorus.
It's pretty good though. All right, so here we've got a few rundown stories. This is the part of the show where I tell you about some stuff that's going on in the news. If I was a real newsman, it would sound a little something like this. Oh, the Israelis are here.
From Beltway Radio and Beyond in Washington, D.C., I'm Emmy-nominated TV newsman and just bona fide sexual beast, J. Scott Smith. And this is the part of the show where I tell some stuff about well, maybe not me, but somebody else is going to tell some stuff about what's happening in the news. So what's going on in the news?
Thanks, Jay. We already covered some of the stuff that's going on in the news. Guess what? There's more. Hooray! All right. What we didn't talk about yet, but just bears mentioning, is that there was a plane crash this morning in India, an Air India Dreamliner 787. Their first crash. The 787 Boeing Dreamliner has been flying with a stellar service record for 13 years now, and now there's been a crash. No word yet on what caused it. They're still waiting. The authorities are sifting through it. It crashed shortly after takeoff. From looking at the charts, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think it was a bird strike, something like that, some sort of catastrophic external factor. I don't think it's an engine failure or some sort of pilot error. It'd be unlikely. Let's say that. I think it's something external, but I could be wrong. It happens every now and then. Okay, speaking of airplanes, since May 7th of this year, finally, travelers have needed to have the Real ID compliant driver's license. You may remember this from back in the Bush administration, W administration, where they're after 9/11, they're like, oh yeah, these guys had fake IDs that like anybody could have gotten. And they wanted to tighten up the rules about how states could issue driver's licenses. And the federal government can't really tell states how to issue driver's licenses, but they can say what is acceptable identification for boarding an airplane. So they said, if you're going to get on a plane, you got to have this, what they called a real ID, in which your identification information was checked a little more thoroughly. In my case, I think to get mine, I had to show them a passport or a birth certificate or something like that to say that I was who I said I was, which is funny because you need your driver's license to have gotten your passport in the first place. But, it's cool. Anyway, the federal government passed this rule about Real ID way back when, and then they didn't give the states any money with which to execute on it. And so the states were like, hey, look, we need a little money to like revamp our whole DMVs. And over the years, Congress has done two things. They've kicked a little bit of money at the states, and they've extended the deadline for when they had to finally be compliant. Well, 2 decades later, we are now finally at that deadline. And so the Real ID stuff is out. Most of the Real IDs, you're looking at one because it has a little star up in the corner or on the middle or in the side. And, the star, like some of them are just like a star in a circle. The Virginia ones were just a star in a circle.
Same with Maryland.
Yeah. And like California, they put the star on the bear, because it's California. They got to do that. But like, it was, it's cool. Well, it turns out people are having a hard time figuring out what's a Real ID and what is their Costco card, because the Costco card also apparently features a little star thing. And so everybody was like, hey, is this a Real ID? And no, it's not.
Nope.
Nope. So now the government folks, they caught wind of this. They had a little fun about it. They said that they're all in favor of the hot dog and a Coke deal and the rotisserie chicken, but that's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Get on an airplane. But yeah, it's been 20 years since Real ID was passed, and it took forever. It's not good. It's not an example of efficiency. Where's Elon? All right. Here's some other stuff, though. Okay. Apart from this being like one of the most terrifying timelines you could possibly imagine, with authoritarian Trumpistas trying to take over and unmake the government, airplanes falling out of the sky, the Israelis bombing basically everybody around them. It's also the dumbest fucking timeline you could imagine, because it features people like RFK the 8th, or whatever number he is, not content to obliterate HIV research or basic vaccine health, or like, I don't know, a CDC that functions, or the people who track down flu outbreaks. No, he wasn't good enough with destroying public health that way. He's also opening up space for these bleach idiots. This is hard to explain. There is a compound, a chemical, called chlorine dioxide. Now, anybody who is paying attention hears the word chlorine and goes, hey, that's not safe. Chlorine dioxide is bleach. In very tiny, tiny amounts, it's used to do important things like disinfecting things. In fact, most of the municipal water systems in the country, when you say like, oh, the water has chlorine in it to like make it safe to drink, that's what they're using, is chlorine dioxide. But they're using a very, very tiny, 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 tiny amount. And sometimes they're exposing the water to the chlorine dioxide as a disinfectant and then exposing it to something else that neutralizes it to make it go away. And you see it in other places, like in water purification systems, sewage systems. You see it sometimes used as like a cleaner, all kinds of stuff like that. You know where you don't see it? Consumable products. Because it's toxic. However, over there in Fox Newsistan, there is a bunch of people who sell this stuff. They sell it under the name the Miracle Mineral Solution, Chlorine Dioxide Solution, Water Purification, God's Detox. That's one of the things. And they think everybody should drink it. They want people to drink it or inject it or like sprinkle it on their kids or something. I don't know.
This is the new Kool-Aid.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah.
There's one guy who sells it as a nasal spray. Great. So here's the thing. Please don't drink bleach or inject it into yourself or spray it up your nose or sprinkle it on anything. Please just use it to keep your shirts white or something.
Or you can watch Bleach. It's a great anime.
There you go. You can watch Bleach. You can use it to make your hair blonde. Brian did that once, and now he doesn't have any hair.
Yeah.
But like, here's what you shouldn't do. Please don't ingest it at all.
There is actual warning signs that tell you not to.
However, if you are somebody like, say, RFK Jr., or anybody who voted for Donald Trump, those rules do not apply to you.
Hold on. I'm going to throw in the test flag. I'm going to throw in the test flag. Hold on.
No, he's not here. He can't stop me. If you voted for Trump, it is safe for you, but only for you, to ingest as much bleach as you want. And in matter of fact, it might cure various things that are wrong with you, like club feet or, achy elbow, right? You'd be like, hey, my elbow hurts. And then like, I'll say, did you vote for Trump? And you'll say, yeah. And I'll be like, oh, well then try this bleach. It's delicious. Thank me in the morning.
Literally.
Hurry up and wait. Okay. Let's talk about the phone. You know what the phone is? As numbers, you dial them, call somebody.
I used to do the rotary.
Yeah, we had rotary phones back in the 1900s, before the turn of the century. Back when Brian was a young man. Believe it or not, Brian was a young man. Here's a phone number. 866 DHS to ICE. Now, this phone number was published by the Department of Homeland Security with this really not at all sinister looking poster that says report all foreign invaders, and it gives this phone number. You could call the number if you wanted to. You could do anything you want with that phone number. I'm not telling you to call it. I'm saying you could call it. You could use it to just, do whatever you wanted to. You might jam up their lines with a bunch of spam calls, or you might hand it out to the home warranty spammers or something like that. You can do whatever you want with that number. Here's another number you could do something with if you wanted to. It's 202-881-6070. You can call that number if you want. I'm not sure if it still goes to Jared Kushner, but it might. And if it does, you want to talk to him, find out what the Saudi investments are up to these days. I'm sure he'd love to chat. I mean, he's not working for the president currently. I think he's, what's the word? Taking bribes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that's his full-time job now, is taking bribes. But, if you feel like you want to chat with Jared Kushner, again, that's your choice. He can be reached at 202-881-6070. Have a good time. Don't tell him I said hi. I don't want to talk to that guy. That's why I'm not calling it. But, you can call it if you want. That's cool. Want to do some animal news, Brian?
I like animals. Animals everywhere.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the disc golf?
Yeah, there's actually a nice course in not far from my area.
There you go. There's quite a lot of them around here. Yeah. My brother is a professional disc golfer. He's made the pro tour.
Cool.
Yeah, he loves it. So, disc golf is mostly played by crunchy hippies in the woods with their discs and their backpacks. And I mean, there's other kinds of people who play it, but it's a thing you play on land, right? What's something you would not expect to find while you're out walking around throwing discs into baskets?
A landmine.
Well, you would hope you don't find one of those. I don't know. You're on land. What's the chances you're going to run into, let's say, a hammerhead shark?
Say what?
Yes. I'm going to read this story straight up to you because that's what you're going to find. This guy, Jonathan, was out on the links with some friends at Splinter City Disc Golf Course in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, earlier this month when he looked up and he saw an osprey cruising above the course's 11th hole. It's not uncommon to see an osprey carrying something, but you take note because it's still really cool to see, said the guy, Jonathan Marlowe. Ospreys have, been known for snagging fish out of bodies of water with their talons. That's pretty much what they do, right? They're ospreys. This one was no different. However, as it was flying over, the bird dropped the fish that it was carrying, and that's when Marlowe realized that the fish in question was actually a small hammerhead shark. There aren't too many scenarios in which having a hammerhead shark dropped on the ground near you wouldn't be weird, but disc golf could be toward the top, especially if it happened to the wrong group of golfers. Yeah. So, like, what a headline. Disc golfer finds baby hammerhead that was dropped by an osprey. Apparently, the osprey collected the hammerhead and then was flying over the disc golf course and got harassed by a couple of crows. And then it dropped the hammerhead on Jonathan Marlowe. What a story.
Hey, now technically, is it a fish story or is it a?
It depends how big you tell it.
Yeah.
The hammerhead was this big.
Yeah.
The osprey's wingspan was this big. All right. And our final story tonight. I don't know what else to do but to tell you this one here. I'm just going to read it straight up because each sentence here gets weirder and weirder. A Kentucky man known as Cowboy Cody let loose a terrified raccoon in a bar out of revenge for being turned away from the establishment Friday night, according to police and a bartender who witnessed the incident. That is a hell of a way to start a story.
Yes.
Police arrested Jonathan Mason, 40. Does he look 40 in this picture?
He looks more than 40.
Yeah.
You can tell he's been taking some stuff.
Yeah. On a slew of charges, including assault after he released a raccoon in the Big Apple Grill and Bar in the city of Murray, Kentucky. I don't know why it's called the Big Apple. Quote, apparently, he had trapped a raccoon earlier in the day on his farm, and he'd been carrying it around with him, said the bartender, Mary Hafner. I'm a bartender, so, I've seen some crazy stuff in my time, but nothing like this. Mason, who is called Cowboy Cody by locals, lives alone on a nearby farm and has caused trouble in the past at local bars, the employees told the newspaper. Shocking. The guy who lives alone and it's called Cowboy Cody. Hafner, who's 37, has worked at the Big Apple for 5 years, said that Mason was already drinking when she encountered him Friday night. The bar had previously banned him over a drunken mule incident. Not a Moscow mule, just a drunken mule incident. Don't worry, we'll find out what that is. Mason always liked her, Hafner said, and she thought that she could convince him to leave without causing a scene. I came out from around the bar and asked him to leave nicely, she said. He said to me, "Oh, I see how it is. They sent a pretty face out here to distract me." Initially, Mason complied without complaint. At first, I was like, whew, I diffused a big issue, said Hafner. But moments later, Mason returned, armed with the raccoon. She said the raccoon waddled into the crowded restaurant as customers looked on in confusion. This is getting great. It was more scared than anything, she said of the raccoon. It was pretty upsetting for him, I imagine. Poor little raccoon. Hafner told her fellow employees to let her handle the raccoon, but another employee didn't listen and tried to snatch the furry fiend by his tail. It bit him, and then he had to get a rabies shot. A video shows the employee crawling on the floor, chasing after the raccoon as he weaves his way through the tables and chairs. The raccoon then bites the worker on his hand as the wild animal makes a shrieking growl. But Hafner was able to lure the critter onto a chair where she casually wraps him in a towel and heads for the exit. I am no city slicker, she said. I'm a Kentucky girl, I got no problem catching him. Side note, if you meet a girl who can just catch raccoons with a towel, you should either marry her or get as far away from her as possible. The worker who was bitten got the rabies shot. It's not the first time that Mason has been involved in an animal-related crime. Remember the mule incident? Here it is. Last winter, Mason was arrested twice for leading cops on a wild, drunken chase through the streets on a mule. Big Apple employees had to call the police on Mason when he allegedly beat the animal with a whip in the parking lot. Mason led police on a drunken chase on the mule on the night of December 7th and then did it again on December 9th.
Okay,
This
I'm
is
going to
like-
show the picture again. And I
can't wait to go to this place.
Yes.
Callaway County, Kentucky. Where in Kentucky is this?
It's got to be somewhere deep.
Murray, Kentucky.
Yeah. I think it's nowhere near Louisville, or it's got to be somewhere deep.
I'm about to find out. Let's see here. It is a
He looks
city
like
in
he's
Callaway
like
County.
like those, like, you know, if you remember the show like Dukes of Hazzard, and he's like that guy who creates that moonshine out of their own tub while they're sitting in it. It's like that's what he reminds me of.
He does look like that. Okay. For reference, Jesus, I'm having to zoom way out to like find anything anybody's heard of. It's south and east of Paducah, if you know where that is. It's substantially south and east of St. Louis. On that, so it's like
Missouri,
in the part of
it's
Kentucky. It's closest to where Kentucky touches Missouri, yeah, and just north of the Tennessee line.
So
it's far western Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's that's really something. I mean, you know, if you live out there, maybe riding a mule on a police chase sounds like an attractive way to spend 2 nights in. Caught him on the mule, I guess. He refused to leave his car when the cops pulled him over later that night after releasing the raccoon. He wouldn't roll down the window so the officers could question him. Eventually, the cops placed him under arrest. He was booked in the county jail and is facing charges of third-degree criminal trespass, second-degree assault, resisting arrest, and failure to maintain insurance.
Insurance of what?
I don't know where the raccoon falls in those charges, though. Is the raccoon charged with anything?
Yeah, I guess not, unless he had a crack pipe somewhere hidden.
Right. Meth pipe, Brian. Meth pipe. Yeah, 2. That's 2 raccoon stories in 2 weeks here, by the way. Yeah. We're developing a trend. All right, you hear that music, which means we've come to the end of the show. We want to say thank you to Nikki and Miko for being so cool and spending all that time with us. Go check out their show, Boots to Heels _podcast. Boots with the and then 2 is the number 2 Heels _podcast, where you can find out all their stuff. They drop new episodes every Wednesday. It's very compelling. It's fun and it's charming and it's not as heavy and terrifying as this show. So I definitely recommend it as a way to take a little break. Thanks to our radio partners, CB Radio, FRS Radio, and Ham Radio. That's the delicious one. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, maybe. Don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as the currently quiet streets of Los Angeles. All right, Brian, where can everybody find you and catch some No Filter Sports?
With No Filter Sports, we're taking a hiatus, so we're waiting for Miss Kiki to get back into the groove. And basically, mind you, we always feel like, during the summer things are calm, but I'm a baseball guy. I want to talk about baseball, but we'll wait until the fall for that. But you can still check out our some interesting facts about sports on no_filter_sports_2.5. So where we I still post up some interesting things, highlights of certain games and stuff like that from other people. So at least keep sports in the air here on Beltway Radio and beyond.
There you go. All right, and you can find Tez somewhere on the blue sky at DC Cortez. You can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night at 9:30, except not next Thursday night, because we have a Juneteenth special that is going to be airing, right? And
yes, featuring Tez solo, as he says, or I say. We'll be featuring Miss Daryl Fairweather. She's an author. Yeah, Dr. Daryl Fairweather. She's an author of a very excellent book called Hate the Game. So it was an interesting interview. So I think, and Tez did a very good job. So
I haven't heard or seen it. I want to see it, and yes. Brian told me I had to wait until it aired. So
yes, so wait until next week, following Man in the Mirror show, which will air from 7 to 9. But this special episode of Chip Chat will be at its regular time at 9:30.
All right, you can check that out. It's going to be all over everywhere, all of our regular channels. I can't wait to see it. And happy Juneteenth to everybody. I won't get to see you on that day. It's still a holiday for now. So anyway, catch us every Thursday night, except not next Thursday night. Well, you're not catch me every next Thursday night because we're going to have a special next Thursday night. But then we'll be back. We've got all kinds of stuff lined up all through the summer. I'm Chip. That's Brian. Tez is somewhere. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
What?